I think one way to respond to some of these transhumanist visions is not so much seeking to tame them as to set a more compelling and equally imaginative vision alongside them. So one thing about transhumanism, and especially with those science fiction links and resonances, is that it is very imaginative and sort of sketches out these visions of future human being and becoming that are really compelling for a lot of people. And if you look at some of the discourse, it's sort of filled with language of transcendence and deification and becoming like gods. And this is, again, an opportunity, I think. So I like James McClendon, theologian, his phrase, he describes the need to enter the tournament of narratives, that sort of in a postmodern milieu we have all these narratives competing for attention, and Christianity, Christian theology, if it is going to speak to anyone, needs to be able to enter into that space. And actually, the good news is that in the Christian tradition, there's a wealth of resources for theologians and philosophers and writers, artists to kind of reclaim some of that language of transcendence and respond to transhumanism in that way. I think a strong engagement would take an imaginative approach and something that kind of does justice to the fact that we are creative beings. My original background is in science. I studied in genetics and biochemistry and did a little bit of work in research. And I think coming from that background first, before I turned to theology, has given me an openness and even an excitement when it comes to some of these human enhancement proposals that perhaps isn't there theologically from the beginning. So on the one hand, I feel like I can come to some of these proposals without the hyperbole of sort of a blanket prohibition that says, kind of the playing God argument that a lot of religious adherents are sort of tarred with. But then having also the kind of theological view and wanting to kind of set it within the context of a robust theological framework and a doctrine of creation, that also helps to not get carried away with kind of what can we do just for the sake of achieving something and exploring possibilities and pushing boundaries of human being and that sort of thing. But it grounds it within this overall, again, account of sort of salvation history and how God is working in the world. I think taking that kind of approach allows us to chart a middle course, really. So you don't need to reject all technologies outright, but nor do you need to sort of embrace them uncritically. But actually, we can really shift each proposal into its proper place as kind of a question for moral theology like any other question. So it's something that requires discernment, that requires nuance and sophisticated engagement, but we don't have kind of a reflex reaction either way to it.